welcome to my guide to the Beastmaster Hunter class specialization. And I have to make a huge apology because earlier on in the video that I made about the Frost Death Knight, I said I didn't do pets, if you remember that pun. And here I am talking about the Beastmaster Hunter class because sure enough, after I made that video, I thought, this isn't fair. I need to explore this class. And the Hunter class is one of the very few that I haven't ever leveled up very far. I had started some and only got to about level 15 or 20. And I didn't really know if this class would fit me or fit my playing style. But I have absolutely found this to be a delightful revelation, if you like. The Hunter class is an amazingly complex and versatile class. It's really offered me so much, and I've had an absolute whale of a time with it. And you know, if you're like me and you had this perception, or have a perception that it's just a one-click kind of deal, and you know, they just loll on their you know, their butts far away while everybody else is doing the heavy work, it couldn't be further from the truth. The hunters do an awful lot and they bring an awful lot to the table, and I'm going to do my best to explain how I've come to terms with the Beastmaster class. And first of all, you can see that again I'm sporting some great transmog gear from the legacy raids that I encourage you to do. You can do that, especially when you're, you know, about level 94, 95. That'd be a great time to start exploring them. Some beautiful stuff. Look at this bow that I got. I think I got that from Arkindon, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Very lucky to get that. So, you know, another female avatar. I'm going to apologise for that. Adranai this time, a bit like Avatar. Yes, they are. And so, what we're going to do is, as before, I will go through the talent selections, the glyphs that I've chosen, and then kind of explain how I approach play. So let's bring up the talent selections and get straight into it. So at level 15 I chose Post Haste. This is a great one because you will probably find that you use Disengage quite a lot when you get used to it, to get out of impairing effects and just get yourself out of trouble. And earlier on, it's also a great one because it gives you a boost, a speed 60% for 8 seconds. So although a bit annoying because you have to kind of jump back, it actually gives you a bit of a speed burst in the dungeon, so you can catch up with your other party members. And you won't be getting anything like that until you get Aspect to the Cheetah, in terms of a kind of consistent movement burst. So, you know, that's a handy one to have. So Post Haste at level 15. Then at level 30 I chose Binding Shot. Binding Shot because it's great for keeping mobs and NPCs together in a specific area and not allowing them to get out of that. So, you know, if they're trying to get to you as a hunter or trying to get spellcasters, whatever in the part, they'll actually be stuck to a position. That also helps the tanks as well. So level 30 Binding Shot is the one I would choose. At level 45 you get a healing spell of some description, and I decided on Spirit Bond. You could look at Exhilaration, but it's only 30% for yourself. It does heal your pet, but you're going to have Mend Pet anyway, so there's really no point in that. And I chose Spirit Bond, which is regenerates 2% of your total health and your pet's health consistently every 2 seconds. So it's a very good. It's also a passive, and as I've said in the past, if you have the choice to have a passive and the utility is great over something you'd have to keybind, choose that. That would be my advice. So at level 45 it's Spirit Bond. Level 60, a wonderful spell, Dire Beast, which you'll be using an awful lot if you decide to choose it. because it summons a random beast to fight with your pet, and it lasts for 15 seconds, and it also gives you more focus as it's doing that. It's just a great spell, and it's only got a 30-second cooldown, so on most fights you'll be refreshing that and using it again. It's just very handy. Level 75, actually all of them are quite good at level 75, but I chose Stampede, and the reason I chose Stampede, and I suppose many would, is because you get all of your pets to fight your target at once, and when you get to the higher levels you'll have up to 5 pets that you can collect. One thing to note here, essential for any Beastmaster Hunter, or any of the hunters actually, remember when you get a pet, take Growl off, and the way you do that is you right click it. If you're new to the hunters, you probably weren't aware that this growl here is actually a taunt, and when you're in a party or a raid it's just not useful at all. It will just, you know, reduce aggro from your tanks. It's not something that they want on, so ensure that every pet you collect, take Growl off. If you're soloing, yes, you could put Growl back on if you want to use your pet as a tank, but the pets I've collected are not suitable as tanks. They are, you know, for damage, DPS. So that's one thing to point out there. So level 75, it's Stampede, that's the one I would suggest. Level 90, I chose Glaive Toss, and also because a lot of people online had suggested that this was a good one to have. It is a very, very useful skill to have. Not only does it reduce kind of speed damage, but it does an awful lot of damage to your main target and other targets that happen to be in the way. And also it's very short cooldown, and it also augments your AoE ability, which is your multi-shot, and you'll tend to be using multi-shot a little bit when you've got, you know, quite a few, your mob in front of you or whatever, and then you can hit with Glaive Toss as well, so it kind of augments that. Glaive Toss is just quite a good all-round ability. Now, when you get to level 100, I would suggest Exotic Munitions. A, because it's passive. B, because it's got 3 choices there. Incendiary Ammo and Frozen Ammo, particularly interesting. Incendiary Ammo giving you a lot more damage, and Frozen Ammo kind of augmenting your trap ability, which is to slow, you know, opponents down if the ice trap isn't available. It's just a great one. You have that utility there. So those are the talents that I've chosen, and now let's get into the glyphs. And these are the glyphs that I've chosen. We'll start with the major ones. I chose Glyph of Pathfinding because that increases the speed bonus of your Aspect to the Cheetah. And note here, don't use Aspect to the Pack. The reason you shouldn't be using Aspect to the Pack, although, you know, it's kind of annoying because it's one of those, you say you finally got a buff that you could use for your party or raid. Unfortunately, one of the down aspects of Aspect to the Cheetah, which will be nullified by one of the minor glyphs, I'll show you that in a minute, but not Aspect to the Pack, is that you can be dazed. And that's no use to a tank. You don't want your tank getting dazed. So tanks will tell you, anyway, they'll flat out tell you if you've got Aspect to the Pack on, they say switch it off, it's no good to us, we don't want to be dazed. So Aspect to the, but for Aspect to the Cheetah, Glyph of Pathfinding works very well, and it also increases your speed while mounted by 10%, which is very good. I chose Glyph of Ice Trap because I use Ice Trap an awful lot, and it increases its area of effect. That's a very useful one. And then I chose, well, it was a choice really between Mend Pet, which would remove a cursed disease, magic or poison effect every time you used Mend Pet, or Glyph of Endless Wrath. And in the end, it had to be Glyph of Endless Wrath because my class is DPS. And when you use your Endless Wrath, your big ability here that, you know, increases the damage that your pet deals and gives you less, you know, costs less. Your shots cost less to focus. This ensures that your pet can't actually be killed, and that's just a great bonus. That when you're using, you know, your Endless Wrath, the pet can't be killed at all. So to a point, you don't even have to worry about mending it while it's under that effect. So those are the 3 I chose. With the miners, I chose Glyph aspect of the cheetah, and I think that's a must when you're Beastmaster Hunter, because you want to use aspect of the cheetah because it has that movement increase, but you don't want to be dazed. And all this does is say you won't get dazed while you're under aspect of the cheetah. What will happen instead is that the effect aspect of the cheetah will be cancelled. Well, that's really easy. You just refresh it with the button. So there you go. Although you will get used to hitting aspect of the cheetah a lot. Glyph of Tame of Beast, I chose that because that's just a really nice kind of bonus for when you're trying to subdue pets, and it reduces that time by 4 seconds, and useful when you're trying to get, very exclusive pets and things like that. I've got one empty here, and largely because the other miners, 10 minor glyphs here, tend to be cosmetic and not really of much utility, but you can have a play around and see what works for you. So those are the talents and the glyphs, and now I'll go on to the key bindings, and what I think I'll do is I'll bring up the keyboard as I've done in the past, and the Hunter class has actually forced me to keep buying 2 separate keys in addition to the normal keys that I use, because it is quite a complex class, and I'll describe the way that I play it after I've done the key bindings. And one thing I had to, well, you don't have to do, but I did. So if you look at W, A, S, and D, those are your movement keys on the left hand. Q is a macro. Now, it could be just concussive shot, but I macroed it with tranquil shot. And I'll show you how to macro really quickly. It's very easy. You go to your macro section under the escape there, and you will go to new, and you will type a title that you like and choose an icon. And once you've done that, you'll OK it, and you'll come to this area here, which will show you the icon and show you the title. And one of the basic commands is cast. It's /cast, which just basically says, you're going to cast a spell, or a shot, just like you would if you hit your key or clicked it. And you'll see here that I've put cast concussive shot, enter, cast tranquilizing shot there. Yeah. Now that works because both of those are instant casts. Unfortunately, if you try this with spells that aren't instant casts, it won't work because there's something called the global cooldown, and the global cooldown is there to stop you being able to cast spells with cast time all at once. But with instant casts, obviously there's no cast time, so it will work. And you can put concussive shot and tranquilizing shot together, save that, and then drag your icon to Q. So there you are. So you've got your concussive and tranquilizing shot on one key on Q. On E you will have your steady shot, which will then become Cobra shot at level 85. That's a really important strike because it doesn't use any focus. Your main strike really, with quite a long cast time, but you'll get used to that. And then on R we have Arcane Shot. Arcane Shot's a bit of a filler shot. You can use it once or twice, but it's quite heavy on focus, so it's kind of useful. I'll tell you how I integrate the Arcane Shot. On the lower levels you'll be using it an awful lot anyway. And then on T, okay, I'll come to T in a minute. Tab is your Bestial Wrath, which I also explained, is augmented by one of the glyphs. So that's one of your big striking abilities with your pet. And then yes, the new key, T, which is next to R, so I've extended it across. Now T, I've put kill command, which is one of your major strikes with your pet that you'll get familiar with as you're leveling up. So that fits quite neatly there. So you put all of your major strikes again next to W in a line. Next to D you've got F, which is your AoE ability, which is your multi-shot. And then next to key 1 and above key tab is the key with a little kind of squiggly line. And what I've put there is Ice Trap. And this is kind of a, an optional one, but I use Ice Trap an awful lot, and that key there just seemed quite a nice, and you know, fairly manageable one to add. And then we've got keys 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So key 1 is your counter shot, which you should be exploiting when you're in front of a spellcaster, or you're casting against a spellcaster. Probably won't work against major bosses, they'll probably be immune, but try it anyway. So there's your counter shot. 2, on key 2 we have the binding shot, which is explained in the talents, very useful one there, you know, to be augmented with your traps, and I'll come to that in a bit. And then on 3 and 4, well, I will, because I chose Glaive Tots, it would have to be on 3 or 4 because they're easy to reach. And on 4, you've got Kill Shot, and Kill Shot you'll be using an awful lot. You've got to get used to a very powerful spell, that is. So 3 on either 4, it's changeable. You want Glaive Toss and Kill Shot. On number 5, your emergency button, which is disengage, which is very useful. Now, the abilities that you don't have to keybind, and I've always said that, it's controversial, isn't it? But yes, as you can see already with the Hunter class, you're getting more complicated with the key bindings already. So these are the ones that you don't really need to. Aspect of the Cheetah and Mend Pet I've put together because those are very, I use them an awful lot. Take a second to click. As with the Cheetah, you'll be refreshing quite a lot because, you know, instead of getting dazed, if you use the glyph that I've suggested, you'll just lose aspect of the Cheetah, and you want to replenish it because you want your movement increase. Mend Pet, you should be getting used to that. Every time your pet's killed a member of the mob, you know, a member of NPC or something like that, you should mend it just out of habit, because the pet usually will be doing most of the damage, right, and be the one getting struck most of the time. Dire Beast I've explained, very useful augmentation. Stampede is a 5-minute cooldown, so you can have it quite happily up there, it's not going to do anything. T is now, you know, kill command is bound to T, which I've described. Your trap launcher you only hit once, and it should be up here on this line here of your buffs and things. So you should see that there when you've got it and it's available. Make sure it's, you know, up and running, because that allows you to use your traps at a distance. And then we've got Ice Trap, which I told you is key bound on the squiggly line key. And then we've got Explosive Trap right next to that. Camouflage is quite a useful one. Yeah, it's useful when you want to avoid mobs and things when you're soloing, and perhaps there's a bit of utility when you're in a raid or dungeon situation. If everybody's suddenly getting cold, you could perhaps try and use camouflage to avoid and reduce aggro from mobs and maybe survive. And if you're with a guild, you'll probably have mass resurrection, which you could use when there's nothing going on. This one is a racial, you probably won't have it if you've chosen a different race. It's actually a healing spell, so it's very useful. And then these are all to do with capturing pets. So yes, those are the ones. 2 more to talk about. Aspect of the Fox. An Aspect of the Fox is a useful spell, but it's only useful if other party members or raid members are actually aware that it's there. Because if they're not aware that it's on, then it's wasted, and it allows spellcasters to move, basically. Mages have an ability to do that anyway. They have a talent choice, I believe, called Ice Flows that they can use. But warlocks and things like that, it will help them be able to move. But it only lasts 6 seconds, and again, they need to be aware that you're actually using it. So you might actually want to create a macro which just shouts out Aspect of the Fox on to everybody in the raid. And then we have Focus Fire. Now, Focus Fire is interesting one. It is useful, but it uses up all the frenzy from your pet. I do use it. I'm not saying that I don't, but it's not one of the priorities that I use, and that's probably because of the way that I play. But I do use it in big boss encounters and things like that when it's available. Now, so I've gone through the glyphs and the talents. How do I approach playing? Well, the Hunter class is quite unique in that it has so many different ways of approaching different situations. So generally, if I'm in a group, party, or a dungeon, what I tend to do is I tend to start with my traps, my ice trap and my explosive trap, and then the binding shot, which is on key 2. Yep. So to try and enhance the party's ability to contain the mobs. This isn't particularly with, you know, the bosses. This is mobs and things when we're clearing. And then from there, I go into... Let's have a look. If you can bear with me a second. I will then probably use concussive shot on a single target, which is concussive and tranquilizing shot together. And then your pet's going to go in anyway, because you've signified the target with your concussive and tranquilizing shot, so it'll go to the target. And if Bestial Wrath is available, I hit Bestial Wrath. I then use Kill Command if I can. I hit Dire Beast. So these 3 abilities here, very useful. While at the same time, you know, I'm hitting concussive shot, I'm hitting Cobra Shot. So normally before Cobra Shot, I'll make sure that Bestial Wrath and Kill Command, Bestial Wrath and Dire Beast are done. And then I'll hit Cobra Shot, and usually while Cobra Shot's going along, you know, you'll find that Kill Command is available. So once Cobra Shot is finished, you'll hit Kill Command, and then you might want to follow up with a couple of arcane shots, but not too many, because they use up an awful lot of focus, and they're not that particularly powerful. And then, you know, start that process again. Usually, you probably avoid it, you know, not having to replenish concussive trank or trank, as I've called it, concussion shot and tranquilizing shot. You know, you'll probably want to go back to Cobra Shot and keep your eye on Bestial Wrath, Kill Command, and Dire Beast, and just refresh those. Now, if you're in a, you know, quite a big group, you know, when you first go into a big mob or something, this is the time to use your AoE. And you want to hit multi-shot maybe once or twice, maybe up to twice, because again it's using up quite a lot of focus, and follow that up with Glaive Toss. Glaive Toss though is really interchangeable, because you can use that in combination with multi-shot, but also with your Cobra shots and your arcane shots. So you might actually fire your Cobra shot and say, no, I'm not going to hit I'm not going to hit arcane shots. I'm actually going to use the Glaive Toss because it's available, and you know it's just a really powerful spell. And so you can see that there's quite a few decisions to make depending on, you know, what the cooldown situation is and what you feel is best for the appropriate situation in front of you. And I think the great thing about the Hunter class is it becomes more instinctual as you go up, you know, as you level up. Because when you start leveling, you only have a few spells that you become, you know, your standards, if you like, and you get used to that. It's one of the reasons I don't use a rotation skill, a rotation add-on. I'm sure there's some out there. The only add-on that I use, I'll show you, is Bitten Spell Flash, which again, you know, you can find on curse.com, and that's the only one I use. I've never even considered using a rotation add-on for the Beastmaster Hunter class, because everything just seemed to come quite instinctively, and I like the idea that you can change up things as you're going along dependent on what you feel might be best and the way you want to play. I don't get hung up particularly on DPS stats and things like that, and I don't advise that you should. I think that as a player you should be more concerned about, especially when you're in a raid or a dungeon, what utility you're bringing to the party. You might have skills, for instance, like Ice Trap. That doesn't do any damage at all. But what it does is it reduces the speed, it impairs the speed of all the mob, all of the NPCs in the mob, and that's a great utility for a party. Whereas if you were only DPS single-minded, if you were, you know, you have some kind of DPS stat machine up here recording what you're doing, you're not going to use that because you're going to say, well, it doesn't do any DPS damage, and I want my DPS damage up. So you're only going to be concerned with things that directly do DPS damage. Well, that's not particularly useful for a party or a raid, because as a combined unit, you will be creating a huge amount of damage. It's not really the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal of any raid or a dungeon is to get through it. It's to kill the bosses, and to do that as well as you can. Anyway, so that's how I've approached it. A little bit of a little bit of a rant about that, but I think it's important to point that out. And wow, what a class! What can I say? I can only recommend it to everybody. It isn't a one-button push class. This is a great, versatile class you can have an awful lot of fun with and enjoy immensely. And I think what I'll do, as ever, is I'll leave you with a mount, because the other day I managed to get all of the achievements for the Ice Crown, Ice Crown Citadel 10-man raid, and I got one of the Frost Broods, one of 2 Frost Broods you can get from ICC. And look at that, what a magnificent steed. Well worth your time and effort getting it. And I can make it roar. Wow, pretty impressive stuff. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it was useful. Have a great day.